Welcome back to the deep dive. I want you to take a second and just shift gears for me.
Yeah, put the phone down if you can.
Exactly. Forget the commute, forget the emails piling up, forget that little notification badge on your screen. Just pull up a chair.
We're going for a specific vibe today.
We really are. Imagine we're sitting around a campfire late at night. The fire's crackling. It's pitch black beyond the trees. The stars are out. And, well, we're about to tell some ghost stories.
But not the kind that make you check under the bed.
Right, no. These aren't the kind designed to make you jump. They're the kind designed to make you question the actual ground you're sitting on right now.
Which is a perfect setting for this, honestly, because usually on this deep dive, we are dissecting things you can touch.
Yeah, hard facts.
Right, we talk about business trends, historical events, tech breakthroughs, things with hard edges, things you can measure with a ruler. But today, we are wading into the mechanics of consciousness itself.
We are looking at a text that challenges pretty much everything we think we know about how thoughts work, how dreams work, and honestly, what reality actually is.
It's a bit spooky.
It is. It's a bit spooky, it's a bit quantum physics, and it is deeply strange. I've been reading through this material all week, and I have to admit, there were moments where I just had to put the papers down and stare at the wall for 10 minutes.
It definitely has that effect on you. It forces you to completely reorganize your mental furniture.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
But before we slip into that trance state ourselves, we do have a bit of housekeeping to take care of.
Right, the mandatory disclaimer.
Yes. We need to explicitly state for everyone listening that this deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
We are here to explore ideas, to learn, and to share.
Exactly. We aren't here to sell you a dogma or convert you to anything. We're just exploring a really fascinating text.
Yeah. And our map for this exploration is a very specific, very dense document. We are doing a deep dive into session 286 from the early sessions, book 7 of the Seth Material.
Okay, so the Seth Material. For the listener who just stumbled in here and thinks we're talking about a guy named Seth from accounting, we need to set the scene.
We do.
This session was recorded, or rather dictated, on September 14, 1966.
Let's paint the picture for them. The setting is Elmira, New York. It's the mid-60s. You have this woman named Jane Roberts.
Right.
By day, she's a writer, a poet, very sharp, very grounded. But at night, twice a week, she enters a deep trance state. Her voice changes, it gets deeper, the cadence shifts completely, and she speaks as an entity calling himself Seth.
And sitting right across from her is her husband, Rob. And this is what I love about the setup. It's not a church.
Yeah.
It's not a temple. It's not a sterile laboratory with guys in white coats holding clipboards. It is literally their living room.
Rob is sitting there with the pen and paper, furiously transcribing every single word she says by hand.
Furiously is the right word, because these sessions went on for hours. And in session 286, which we are looking at today, it's this incredibly domestic scene.
Right. The cats are running around.
Yeah, Jane is pacing back and forth, smoking cigarettes. And amidst all this mid-century normalcy, Seth is delivering what is basically a masterclass on the physics of perception.
It creates this wild contrast. You have a cat knocking over a lamp and simultaneously a non-physical consciousness explaining the nature of time and space.
It really does.
Yeah.
And we also have to give credit where it's due here. This material comes to us thanks to the New Awareness Network.
Absolutely. They are the publisher keeping these archives available for us to study.
So what is the mission today? Out of the thousands of pages of this material, why did we pick session 286?
Because I feel like this session is where the rubber really meets the road.
Yeah.
It's not just high-level, floaty philosophy. It's about mechanics. The goal today is to understand how a non-physical consciousness that Seth actually perceives our physical reality.
We are going to look at the world through Seth's eyes.
Exactly, because we take our senses for granted. You see a table, you touch a wall, you think, this is real, this is solid.
Right.
Seth is trying to explain that from his perspective, our solid world is actually the illusion. And the stuff we think is invisible, like our thoughts, our emotions, those are the actual solid objects to him.
We are going to unpack some serious light bulb moments today. We're going to talk about why thoughts are actions, why telepathy is actually more like a bloodhound tracking a scent than a phone call. And this is my personal favorite, why flying in dreams is actually real.
That dream section is wild. But yes, flying dreams are not what you think they are.
Okay, let's jump right in. Segment 1, the cosmic detective.
Or, as the source material frames it, the envelope experiments.
Right, so a little context for the listener. In 1966, Jane and Rob weren't just taking dictation. They were actively testing Seth.
They were skeptical.
Very. They wanted proof. So they devised these tests. Rob would take an item, maybe a bill, a letter, a rock, a drawing, and seal it inside a thick envelope.
And not just any envelope, they were often double sealed. The goal was to ensure Jane physically could not see what was inside under any circumstances. It was a rigorous double-blind setup.
Then Seth, speaking through Jane, would have to describe what was inside without opening it. Now, on the surface, this sounds like a parlor trick.
It really does.
It sounds like something you'd see at a magic show in Vegas, you know? Like, is this your card?
It does sound like that. But what makes Session 286 so fascinating is that Seth doesn't treat it like a magic trick at all. He treats it like a rigorous physics experiment.
He actually gets frustrated when he misses.
Yes, but not because he's embarrassed. He gets frustrated because he's trying to calibrate his instruments. He takes the whole thing incredibly seriously.
He does. And this is where we get our first major concept of the deep dive.
Yeah.
Seth explains how he actually does it, and he says, effectively, I am not looking at the object.
Right. He gives us this fundamental rule, quote, "To me, a thought is an action. It is as valid a reality."
Let's pause there for a second. A thought is an action. I really need you to unpack that for us.
Yeah.
Because to me, sitting here in this studio, a table is an action, or the result of an action.
Right.
Someone built it. It's wood. It hurts if I stub my toe on it. A thought. A thought is wispy. It's just a ghost in my head. If I stop thinking about it, it's gone. It has absolutely no mass.
That is the standard physical view, yes. We see matter as real and thought as ephemeral. But Seth completely inverts that. He argues that we have the hierarchy entirely backward in his reality. And he argues in the actual fundamental reality of the universe, energy is the stuff of existence.
So you're saying a thought has energy?
Yes. And even scientifically, we know neurons fire.
Yeah.
There is a measurable electrical impulse in the brain. But Seth takes it a massive step further. He says a thought possesses intensity. It possesses an electromagnetic reality. Therefore, to him, a thought is a pseudo-object. It takes up actual space in his mental environment.
So if I'm thinking about a pink elephant right now, in Seth's world, that pink elephant has weight. It has density.
In a way, yes. It has an electromagnetic signature that is just as solid to him as a brick wall is to you. In fact, maybe even more solid.
Yeah, so?
Well, a brick wall doesn't scream at him. A highly charged emotional thought, like intense fear or deep love, is blazing with energy.
So it's loud.
It's incredibly loud, and this connects directly to how he reads those sealed envelopes. He explains that there is no basic difference between telepathy and clairvoyance.
Which is interesting because parapsychologists usually split those things up into entirely different categories.
Exactly.
They say telepathy is reading a mind, and clairvoyance is seeing a hidden object with X-ray vision.
And Seth says that distinction is totally meaningless because in both cases, he is doing the exact same thing. He isn't using X-ray vision to look through the paper of the envelope to see physical ink on a page. He is hunting.
Hunting for what exactly?
The emotional charge attached to the item.
I love the analogy we discussed during our prep for this. It's like a bloodhound.
It really is the best way to visualize it. Imagine a bloodhound tracking a missing person out in the woods.
Okay.
The dog doesn't see the person. The dog is tracking an invisible trail of scent molecules. Seth is tracking an emotional scent trail.
So let's walk through the actual mechanics of this experiment. Rob puts a bill, let's say an unpaid electric bill, into the envelope.
Okay. When Rob puts that bill in the envelope, what is he feeling?
Probably annoyance. Maybe a little worry about money, like, oh, I have to pay this thing.
Exactly. That feeling, that specific frequency of financial worry, attaches to the physical object. It acts like a fingerprint.
Yeah, so Seth doesn't see the numbers $52.10 on the paper. He feels the
Precisely. Seth explicitly says, quote, "The emotional feelings connected with an item are as real to me as the item itself."
Wow.
In fact, they are more real. He locks onto that worry. It acts as a homing beacon. Once he finds the worry, he traces it back to the source. He works backward to figure out, okay, what physical object causes this specific flavor of worry? A bill.
So he finds the emotion first, and then he deduces the object from that emotion.
That is the mechanism. But, as we see in this specific session, that mechanism has flaws. Or rather, it has inherent risks. There is a fascinating error analysis that happens here.
Oh, the medical building. This part was so human to me.
Yes. So, apparently, in a previous session, Seth had tried to guess a location. Rob had put a question in an envelope about a specific medical building. Seth gave an answer, but he was wrong. Or at least he was factually incorrect regarding the physical building.
And usually a psychic would just wave that off and say, oh, the spirits were cloudy today, or the energy was blonde.
Right.
But Seth defends himself here.
Yeah.
He explains why he was wrong, and it's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. Seth says, quote, "The other evening you answered your own question in your mind and we picked up that location."
Wait, so Rob asked the question, but Rob also had a preconceived notion of what the answer was?
Exactly. Rob believed he knew the answer already. That belief carried such a strong emotional charge. It was so loud on the psychic level that Seth locked onto it immediately.
Oh,
Seth says, quote, "Your emotional answer, however, did prevent me from searching further."
that is wild. It's like a psychic false positive.
Mm.
Because Rob was so sure of the answer, Seth essentially said, well, here's the absolute strongest signal in the room. This must be the truth.
It serves as a huge warning about bias. Even in telepathy, confirmation bias is a real thing. Strong beliefs or intense emotions can easily masquerade as facts.
Yeah.
Seth essentially says, I found the emotional reality. The fact that your emotional reality was physically wrong isn't my fault.
He's basically saying, I read your mind perfectly correctly. Your mind was just wrong.
In a nutshell, yes. And it really shows the danger of assuming that just because you have a strong gut feeling about something or a psychic hit, that it's factually true in the physical world. It might just be your own intense desire reflecting back at you.
That brings us perfectly to the second segment, which is really about the day-to-day struggle of being Seth. We call this the translation problem.
It's the cosmic foreign exchange problem. You have Seth, a consciousness existing in a world of pure energy and thought. And he has to talk to Jane and Rob, who live in a world of nouns, verbs, and solid wooden tables.
He has to dumb it down for us.
Drastically. He talks a lot about root assumptions. These are the core agreements we all make to live in physical reality, like time, space, gravity.
Right, the rules of the game.
Exactly. Seth doesn't have those limitations where he is, so he has to constantly translate his fluid perception into our rigid root assumptions.
He talks about how associative thinking works for him. He gives this really great example about a card sent with love.
Right. Imagine Rob puts a simple greeting card in the envelope, but it's a card from someone he loves dearly. To us, physically, it's just a small piece of paper. It weighs an ounce. It's physically insignificant.
But to Seth.
To Seth, the love attached to that card is absolutely massive. It's blazing like a sun. He says, quote, "If you give me, for example, a card that was sent with love, then the love is far more real to me than the card."
So he sees this giant bonfire of emotion, and he has to somehow shrink that down and say, okay, despite this massive energy I'm feeling right now, I need to tell Rob this is just a small rectangular piece of paper.
Exactly. He says, quote, "Size, you see, means relatively little to me. A small sticky note with huge emotion attached to it feels big to him. A massive billboard with no emotion attached to it might feel entirely microscopic or even invisible."
It's like he's navigating a world made entirely of feelings, and he has to map it onto a world made of physical matter.
Mm.
And that translation process leads to some honestly hilarious confusion.
The heaviness dilemma. This is a perfect example of the extreme limitation of human language.
This part actually made me laugh out loud while I was reading the source text.
Wow.
Seth gets an impression of unendurable heaviness.
A very strong, distinct signal. Something is heavy.
But what does heavy actually mean?
All right. Seth has to ask, does this heaviness apply to a heavy psychic sorrow? Or does it apply to a heavy physical weight, like a literal rock?
Imagine being the psychic trying to figure that out in real time. I feel crushed. Is Rob just really sad today? Or is Rob holding a lead brick?
And because our language constantly uses physical metaphors for emotions, it makes the translation even harder for him.
Yeah, we do that all the time.
We say, I have a heavy heart, or that's a weighty issue, or I feel completely pressed down by this job. Seth perceives that pressing down sensation as raw data. He then has to guess if it's gravity or grief causing it.
It really highlights how incredibly metaphorical our language is.
Yeah.
We use physical terms for pretty much everything mental.
There is another example he gives that totally borders on synesthesia.
Oh, the red equals quick concept.
Yes, Seth asks Jane and Rob, quote, "Do you see a connection between the color red and the word quick?"
And Jane, coming out of trance for a second, staring at him, says yes. But if I'm being honest, when I read that, I paused. Red is a color. Quick is a speed. Why on earth are they the same thing?
Think about it vibrationally. Red is the color of blood pumping. It's fire engines. It's Ferraris. It's a very high vibration color. It stimulates the human nervous system.
Okay, that makes sense when you put it that way. Red cars go fast. Red is urgency. Red is an emergency.
So when Seth encounters an event that is fast, like a quick movement or a really impulsive, energetic thought, he doesn't see a stopwatch. He sees the color red. He is translating a time concept, speed, into a visual concept, color.
But then he immediately runs into the problem of the word short. He gets an impression of briefness.
Right.
Does that mean short in time, like a very quick event, or short in space, like a small building or a short person?
It's exactly like playing charades with a multidimensional alien. He says, quote, I must translate the basic data so that it will fit your root assumptions. He constantly has to check the context clues to figure out if short means 5 minutes or 5 feet.
It really makes you sympathize with the medium in this scenario. It's not just a matter of hearing voices in your head. It's decoding a complex alien signal that simply doesn't fit our biological hardware.
Precisely. It's a massive processing load.
Speaking of hardware and root assumptions, I think we should move to segment 3. Because this is where the conversation shifts from how does Seth do parlor tricks to what is the actual nature of our reality. We need to talk about dreams.
This is undoubtedly a favorite topic in the Seth Material. Seth distinguishes between 2 very specific types of dreams. And for the listener, this is a crucial distinction to grasp. We have symbolic dreams and we have root dreams.
Let's start with symbolic dreams. This is what we're all used to, right?
Yes, these are the ones we constantly try to analyze. You dream of a house, and the house represents your current state of mind.
Right.
You dream of losing your teeth, and it represents deep anxiety about aging or a lie of control in your waking life. You dream about being naked in high school math class. It's about vulnerability. These dreams use symbols to tell a story or to process emotional data from the day.
Right. It's a movie playing in your head. It's an internal projection. It's not quote-unquote real.
Correct. But then there are root dreams.
And this is where the material gets completely wild.
Seth says root dreams are direct experiences. They aren't symbols at all. They are things that are actually happening to your consciousness while your physical body is asleep.
Direct experience.
Yeah.
Meaning, I'm not imagining it. It is actually occurring.
Yes, and the prime example he gives for this is flying dreams.
I have to tell you, I have flying dreams all the time. I absolutely love them. I usually just flap my arms a little bit, hover off the ground, and then zoom off over the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it feels incredibly real, like more real than the rest of the dream by a mile. The sensation of the wind, the complete lack of gravity, it's totally euphoric.
Well, according to Session 286, when you do that, you aren't symbolizing a subconscious desire for freedom. You aren't processing a wish to escape your office job. You are actually doing it.
I am actually flying.
Your inner self is flying, yes. Seth says, quote, they are not symbolic of anything, basically speaking. They represent direct experience. Your consciousness has literally disengaged from the physical body and is moving in a non-physical medium where gravity simply does not apply.
That is incredibly cool to think about. But here is the snag for me.
Okay.
When I dream I'm flying, I usually still look exactly like me. I have a body, I'm wearing my pajamas, I have hands. If I'm just a ball of pure energy zipping around the astral plane, why do I have legs?
That is what Seth calls the body illusion.
The body illusion.
Seth explains that we are so entirely addicted to having a physical body. It is such a deeply ingrained root assumption of our existence that even when we leave the body during sleep, we hallucinate a body for ourselves.
You just can't let it go.
We can't imagine existing without one.
So I'm a spirit, but I'm projecting a hologram of myself wearing flannel pajamas because my human mind can't handle being a formless blob of consciousness.
Essentially, yes. You project the image of what you think you should be. You hallucinate arms because you genuinely think you need arms to steer while you fly. But the sensation of movement, the actual lack of gravity, that is real data. You are experiencing a real non-physical environment.
That makes so much sense. It explains why the physics in those specific dreams feel so consistent, even if the visuals are totally weird.
It gets darker, though. What about the opposite of flying? What about falling dreams?
Oh, the worst. You know the ones. You're falling from a building or you trip off a curb and then you jerk awake right before you hit the ground. Your heart is absolutely pounding.
Seth has a very specific explanation for this phenomenon, too. He says falling dreams are also root dreams. They represent the inner self rapidly re-entering the physical body.
So the fall is literally me slamming back into my meat suit.
Crude, but highly accurate. When the consciousness snaps back into the physical vessel after roaming around, there is a sensation of sudden acceleration or a rapid dimensional shift. We interpret that raw sensation as falling.
But why is it always so terrifying? Why do we wake up in a total panic?
Seth argues that is entirely a learned response. He says, quote, No up or down really exists, you see.
Because there's no gravity.
Right. In the non-physical state, there is no gravity, there is no down to fall into. But as children, we learn very quickly in the physical world that falling hurts. Falling is dangerous.
Right. You fall off the swing set, you scrape your knee, you learn gravity is the enemy.
Exactly. So when the inner self feels that sensation of rapid movement or acceleration as it wakes up, the ego immediately panics. It interprets the motion as a physical threat. I'm falling, I'm going to die.
So the intense fear is just a bad translation of the data. We are interpreting a dimensional shift as a fatal physical accident.
Exactly. It's another error in translation, just like the heavy rock versus the heavy sorrow we talked about earlier. Your body jerks. Science calls it a hypnic jerk because your conscious mind is literally slamming on the brakes.
He also mentions past life dreams in this same root category.
He does. He says past life dreams are also root dreams. They were actual playbacks of real experience, not metaphors. But, and this is the tricky part, he says that as we wake up, we often decorate them.
Decorate them,
Yep.
like adding tinsel.
We add embellishments. The raw dream is pure data, a memory of living in 18th century France, perhaps. But as we pull that raw data into our conscious waking memory, the current physical brain doesn't know what to do with it.
It doesn't have the context.
Right. So it might paste on the faces of people we know today or settings we recognize from our neighborhood just to make it fit into a narrative we can understand.
It's like the mind is a really bad film editor. It takes this profound historical documentary footage and just adds cheap CGI effects over it so we don't get confused.
That's a perfect analogy. You get the emotional truth of the memory, but the visual details might be completely corrupted by your current brain's limited database.
Okay, so we've established that thoughts are physical things, and dreams can be real, direct experiences. Now we get to the part of the session that I like to call the Matrix moment. This is segment 4.
This is where Seth completely flips the board over.
He really does. We usually go through life thinking, okay, this table is real, that wall is real. My dream last night about the flying toaster, that was just a silly symbol.
And Seth says, no, the dream, the inner experience, is the actual reality. The physical world is the symbol.
Quote, your outward physical experiences are also symbolic interpretations of inner reality. That is a heavy quote.
It's a profound inversion of how we live. Think about what a symbol actually is. A symbol represents something else.
Yeah, a flag represents a country. A wedding ring represents a marriage.
Seth is saying that a physical object, a chair, a tree, your car, is a symbol representing a deeper inner idea or energy.
And the most personal object of all, of course, is our own bodies.
Yes. Seth says, quote, the physical body as an object is, among other things, a symbolic representation of your own emotional reality.
We wear our emotions as flesh.
We project our self-image outward, and it literally hardens into matter. If you feel small and weak internally, you might project a posture or a physicality that reflects that weakness. If you feel vibrant and expansive, your physical symbol reflects that vitality. We are essentially walking around in costumes made out of our own internal beliefs.
And he scales this concept way up, right? It's not just about individuals, it's the whole world.
The mirror effect. He says, quote, the physical state of your world therefore effectively mirrors the inner condition of its inhabitants.
That is deeply confronting.
It is. He uses the art analogy to explain it. He asks, quote, you can tell an artist's abilities from his paintings, can you not?
So the physical world is mankind's collective painting.
Yes. And if the painting looks chaotic, violent, or beautiful, it is because the collective inner psyche of humanity is chaotic, violent, or beautiful. We are projecting our internal drama directly onto the screen of physical matter.
It really takes the victimhood out of the equation, doesn't it? You can't look at the state of the world and say, why is this happening to us? Seth would say, it's happening by you. You are all painting it together.
It's ultimate responsibility. There is no out there. There is only in here, projected outward for us to experience.
Which leads us perfectly to the final mind bender Seth drops right at the very end of the session. He starts talking about precognition.
This is really the teaser for the next session, but he gives us the core concept right here. He says, quote, within the dream state, all mankind knows the outcome of any given dilemma.
Wait, we already know the outcome.
He says the problems have already been completely worked out on a mental or psychic level, but they haven't yet physically materialized.
So before a war starts, or before a major peace treaty is signed, the actual decision has already been made in the collective dream state.
That is his exact claim. He says, quote, decisions have already been made, but have not yet caught up to you within the physical system.
That implies a massive time delay, like thunder and lightning. The lightning happens, The decision is made mentally in a flash, and then we just wait around for the physical event to finally roll in.
Precisely. We are living in the delayed echo of our own psychic choices. The script has already been written, the actors are just slowly taking their places on the stage.
So does that mean free will is just an illusion? If the decision is already made before we experience it?
No, because we made the decision. We just made it on a level we aren't consciously aware of while awake. We aren't sitting in a theater or watching a movie directed by someone else. We wrote the script ourselves last night in the dream state, and now we are just acting it out in the waking state.
That is a lot to process. It really suggests that our waking life is actually the sleepwalking part, and our dreaming life is where the real awake work happens.
It certainly flips the traditional definitions of awake and asleep entirely upside down.
So let's try to bring this all back down to earth, or back to the campfire as we said at the start. We've gone from guessing what's hidden in an envelope to realizing the entire physical universe is just a giant envelope filled with our own collective emotions.
That's a really great way to summarize it. The physical world is just the envelope. The emotion is the letter inside.
So what's the practical takeaway here for a listener who has to get up and go to a regular job tomorrow?
For me, the biggest takeaway is mindfulness of emotion. If Seth is right and emotions are the actual engine that drives reality, if thoughts are literal actions, then we need to be very, very careful about what we are habitually thinking and feeling.
Because you aren't just having a bad mood, you are actively building a heavy reality.
Exactly. Next time you feel that heaviness we talked about, ask yourself, am I just holding a rock?
Mhm.
Or am I carrying a psychic weight that I desperately need to drop? And remember the medical building error.
Right.
Don't let your strong, stubborn beliefs blind you to what's actually there. Be open to the fact that you might just be wrong.
And maybe try to enjoy your dreams a little more. If you find yourself flying tonight, don't try to analyze it. Don't look for the hidden strings. Just enjoy the flight. It's the only time you get to be your true gravity-free self.
And if you fall, don't panic. It's just the morning commute back to the office.
The morning commute back to the body. I absolutely love it.
Before we wrap up, we really need to remind everyone where this comes from. We are just barely scratching the surface of session 286 today.
There is so much more detail in the books. We strongly encourage you to go directly to the source. Don't just take our word for it. Dive in yourself.
You can find all this material and study the books at sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions.
And make sure to check out the New Awareness Network website and bookstore. They're the ones doing the hard work, keeping this incredible material alive and available for everyone. It is a deep, deep rabbit hole, but it is one absolutely worth going down.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. It's been quite a trip.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Until next time, we'll see you in the dream state.